myself as a person who can study language fairly easy because of its mechanistic style and nature. But this all changed when I started studying Japanese because the biggest change I had to deal with was moving from Roman characters over to Kana, which is the Japanese style of writing. Today I'd like to explain to you the 4 different forms of Japanese writing. And I've been studying Japanese in the classroom for about 2 years, and I've done about 8 months myself of self-study. And as everyone does use language, and most students here in this class have taken a form of language because it's a requirement for most high schools, and most colleges need something as a foreign arts. And so I'll be discussing the 4 forms, which are Romanji, Hiragana, Katakana, and Kanji. The first method I'd like to show you is Romanji, which is actually Romanji is using Roman characters to represent Japanese phrases. So as you can see right here, ao is blue, but this is in Roman characters right here, so you can read both the English and the Japanese meanings. This usually helps students who are first learning because they can take what they know and see the words and be able to phonetically sound them out. And so they use Romanji to help the transition from Roman to Kana, which is the Japanese writing. The main downfalls, though, of using Romanji is that people get reliant on studying with the Romanji, so they don't learn to read Kana and learn how to better utilize that. Now that you know an idea of what Romanji is, we're going to take a look at Hiragana, which is the next form. Hiragana is you could say, the first style of kana that students learn. It's the most basic and it's the easiest fully Japanese writing. Right here are the exact same words that were written in Romanji. And as you can see, if you were to look at this, you wouldn't know how to read those. But from your previous experience using the Romanji, if you were to look at that ao, you'd know that that's what it is. So using this and with Romanji, it allows the transitions to become smoother, and people can use preconceived knowledge to further develop their Japanese skills. Hiragana was developed through basic Chinese characters, very simplified, and this is the main form of writing. You use this when you're doing any form of writing. Most of the time, it's used to help when you're unsure of something I'll be explaining later, which is Kanji. And it also is used to finish verbs, to use for words that there are no kanji for, and particles, which are the structure definition for Japanese writing. Now that I've shown you what Hiragana is, let's move on to Katakana. Katakana is basically using Japanese wording, using Japanese sounds and putting them to English words. It's used most often with foreign words in which there are no Japanese sayings for, but in the same sense, you can use them for words you don't know. So right here is the same words again, and right here is buru, which is blue. And it kind of sounds similar. Often they're used for people who don't know the words. It allows you to speak if you don't know what that word is. But as I said, they're mostly used for foreign words, so things that don't have that Japanese nature to them. This was developed to help facilitate the Japanese language when they expanded and stopped becoming so isolated, and allowed them to incorporate other words into their language. Now that we know what the basics for writing in Japanese are, we will move on to the final method, which is writing kanji. Kanji, similar to Hiragana, were developed from Chinese writing. These are also simplified, not quite as simple, and they also represent full-on words and or phrases. As you can see again, the same words are being used. This is often used for adjectives, nouns, verbs, but without the last tense part to it. And they help facilitate the language for more expedited reading because you're able to look at words and see what they are. One of the main problems, though, using kanji is some words don't have just one meaning. There are some kanji that contain upwards to 5, 6 meanings. So the only way to be able to use kanji and understand what it is and what they're trying to say is to know the context of what you're reading. So without context, some of these words could be very bad. You could misinterpret things extremely bad. Often when people are speaking in Japanese, there's a lot of jokes that they do because people just hear a word, and that also has a secondary meaning sometimes in like another language. So they'll think that they're saying something else, and it creates huge problems within speaking and or writing. You'll notice this most of the time when you're traveling. It's on all signs because it's easy to recognize them. It allows you also to, like I said, write things in shorter, smaller forms, so you can take long paragraphs and make them into much smaller sentences because they're not exactly sentences. They're more phrases. So now that I've shown you the fundamentals to Japanese writing system, which are Romanji, Hiragana, Katakana, and Kanji, hopefully you can pull away from this is the ability to recognize and point this out if you ever see an unfamiliar language. And as you would say in Japanese, arigatou gozaimasu, which means thank you.
So, Palmyra, what did you think?
I did like that you dressed up for your speech. That was really nice. You had a lot of knowledge of the topic. Like, we can just tell that you have been studying Japanese for a long time. You had good audience eye contact, even though you did have to look down, but that's only because there was no podium, so that's not really your fault. Your visual's really good. I like the fact that you, for every single type of writing of Japanese, you use the same words. It makes it a lot easier to follow. Like for examples, at some points in your speech, it was kind of hard to follow because it kind of seemed like you rushed through it. I kind of wished you went more in depth because when you were talking about the different types, I kind of got confused because it kind of seemed like you rushed through it or didn't. No, just I kind of wish you had your delivery was a little smoother. But other than that, it was good. It was interesting. Your intro was really nice. It was a attention grabber, and it was really cool. I liked it.
All right. I like the personal nature of the attention device. I thought it worked pretty well, and you're talking to the audience for the most part there. You've got a clear identification of the topic in your thesis, which is fine. When you watch back, the preview sounds like you're rushing through it, let's say, so you've got to pace yourself a little bit more. And you might even add a brief description as you're going through the 4 styles that you're going to be talking about so we know what each of them means. Right now, we just have the word. So I'm going to talk about, and you list the 4 words, and what does that mean? And so maybe a little bit of a short, not even a short definition, but a phrase maybe that would kind of explain, like the first one. Here's how it relates to English, or how people who speak English would begin to learn this, and then there's a simpler technique for writing it, and then there's one that's a little bit more advanced and involves kind of meeting the balance between the two, and then finally there is the full form of this, and I'm going to talk about them in that particular order. There you go, and you're doing the same thing, except that it'll be a little bit clearer as the audience is listening as to what's coming up. I think you do a nice job when you're talking about them as you get to each point. You've got a good, clear definition of that. I do think that you could use a little source citation from some of the grammar works that you used or the text that you have studied from. I'm sure that that probably, I mean, it's clear you know what you're